we're going to talk about failure. It's something that we all face at some point in our lives. And I think it's safe to say that failure leaves a bitter taste in our mouths when we experience it. But I would argue it is what you do after that experience that will truly determine whether or not you are a failure. I want to give you some examples of individuals who have experienced failure but are not considered failures themselves. First on the list is J.K. Rowling. Now, J.K. Rowling was nearly penniless, depressed, divorced, and trying to raise a child while writing the first Harry Potter novel. She went from depending on welfare to survive, to being one of the richest women in the world in the span of about 5 years, because she was willing to put in the work and keep trying after being initially rejected by multiple publishing houses. The publisher who finally did agree to publish her work suggested that she get a job because there's no money in children's books. Today, her net worth is estimated at $1 billion. Stephen King's first book, Carrie, received 30 rejections, frustrating King to the point that he threw the manuscript for that book in the trash. His wife fished it out and encouraged him to submit it again. And because he chose to keep trying despite the early failures, King now has hundreds of books in print and the distinction of being one of the best-selling authors of all time. Charles Schulz, the creator of the Peanuts comic strip, was rejected by his own high school yearbook. Even after high school, Schulz was again rejected for a position working with Walt Disney. Instead of giving up, he kept trying, he kept drawing, and ended up creating one of the most recognizable comic strips in the world. Now, speaking of Walt Disney, at age 22, he was fired from a Missouri newspaper for not being creative enough. One of his ventures, called Laugh-O-Gram Studios, went bankrupt. The creator of Mickey and Minnie Mouse went on to be nominated for 59 Academy Awards, and he won 32 of them. He still holds the record for the most Oscars won by an individual. Abraham Lincoln is remembered as one of our greatest leaders, but his life was not easy. In his youth, he went to war as a captain and came home as a private. And if you don't know anything about military ranks, private is as low as it gets. And Lincoln didn't stop failing there. He started numerous businesses which failed, and he was defeated in numerous runs for public office before finally being elected as the President of the United States. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the very company that he founded. He also failed with the Next computer company and the Lisa computer. But when Jobs returned to Apple, he led that business to be the most profitable company in the United States. Michael Jordan, who is widely considered the best player ever to step onto a basketball court, was cut from his high school basketball team. But Jordan didn't let that setback stop him from playing the game he loved. He is quoted as saying, "I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games. On 26 occasions, I have been entrusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed." All of these successful individuals that I just talked about have experienced failure in their lives. Many of them experience multiple failures, but they all have one thing in common. They all learned from their experiences and kept moving forward. They never gave up. And now we remember them not for their failures, but for their extraordinary accomplishments. And yes, I know that it's painful and it's bitter when we fail. But when we learn from those failures and establish new pathways, new roads, and new processes because of what we've learned, that will ultimately lead to success. And you'll look back on that failure as simply part of your journey. And it's a necessary part of your journey, my friends, is that failure is part of your road to success. You can't achieve greatness. You can't become the hero of your own story without failing along the way. And even if you did find a way to succeed without any failures along the way, it won't last because you haven't built a foundation for that success to stand on. The bricks of failure form the foundation of your success. So don't be afraid to fail. Experiencing failure does not make you a failure. That only happens if we give up and refuse to learn, refuse to change, and refuse to dust ourselves off and start again. Now, I know that sounds easier said than done, but it's something we all have to do in order to find success. Learn from your mistakes. I know that sounds like a cliche, but truer words have never been spoken. Failure is only failure if you don't learn from it. So when things go wrong, what I would say to you is, take responsibility for what's happened, and then prepare to move forward. Notice I did not say blame others and whine about it. And if we're being honest, that's what happens a lot of times when failure occurs. Instantly, we're looking for someone to blame, a way to say that it's someone else's fault. But that's counterproductive. Laying blame does not fix the problem. Also, I want you to understand that taking responsibility for what's happened is not the same as blaming yourself for it. So what is responsibility and what is blame? To be responsible is to be answerable or accountable for something. It means that you'll be measured by the result. But blame, on the other hand, blame is not just holding someone responsible, but finding fault. And that's not what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to find fault. And I know that it's very easy to want to find fault in someone else when things don't go the way you want them to. But that is the wrong approach to take. Eventually, you'll run out of people to blame for your situation, and you'll have nowhere else to look but in the mirror. So why not start out by looking in the mirror? Not to find fault, but to take responsibility for your life and where you are in it. You are the one who has ultimate control over your life. But the only way you're going to exercise that control is to take responsibility for it. All of it. The good, the bad, the successes, and the failures. That's when you become the hero, when you take the responsibility for what's happened in your life, good or bad, and you exercise the control only you have over it. If you have a success, share it and find a way to repeat it. If you try something and it doesn't work, take responsibility for it and learn from it. Find out why it didn't work. Analyze, evaluate, make changes, and then, using what you've learned, avoid making the same mistake twice. A systemized review will help take the sting out of failure, and you'll become less fearful of it. If you take the opportunity to learn from your failures, you will have simply laid another brick in the foundation of your inevitable success. Until next time, my friends, don't be afraid of failure. Learn from it and continue to push forward. If you keep striving, keep trying, keep learning, and you take responsibility, you will be the hero.